Have you ever noticed how we express ourselves or interact with each other? Have you ever wondered what communication is and what role it plays in our lives? Communication generally means the exchange of messages with others, but it can also be with one's own self, where the self is the sender and the receiver of the messages. It is an integral part of our lives and is interconnected with all activities undertaken by us. Human beings communicate right from the moment they are born till death, and it will not be an overemphasis to say that communication is indicative of life itself. Thus, communication can be equated with other basic needs of life, such as food, clothes, and shelter, as any person, group, or community cannot survive without communication. You may ask, if communication is so omnipresent and integral to our lives, why study communication at all? We need to study communication because it is a complex process which consists of many elements and is also beset with a number of barriers. There is a need to take these elements into consideration and try to remove the barriers so that the communication becomes complete and attains its desired goal, which in our case is to facilitate effective teaching and learning. The word communication has its origin in the Latin word communis, that means to make common. Communication facilitates sharing of common experiences with others. It involves sharing of an idea, thought, feelings, or information with others, which includes thinking, dreaming, speaking, arguing, and so on. Thus, the scope of communication is very wide. Communication is part skill, part art, and part science. It is skill as it involves certain fundamental techniques. It is an art as it involves creative challenges, and it is science because certain verifiable principles are involved, making communication more effective. All this makes communication a complex process. Different scholars have defined communication in various ways. Some of them describe it as the transfer of meaning, transmission of stimuli, one mind affecting other, or sharing of experience on the basis of commonness. Communication has also been defined as a scientific study which involves the art of communication so that skilled communication can be produced. Communication performs many functions such as informing and generating awarenesses, educating, persuading, motivating, entertaining, etc. Information sharing. Information is key to progress in any society. Communication plays an important role in information dissemination related to any form of human activity such as social, political, economic, educational, and development. Education and training. Communication results in sharing of information, which in turn makes people knowledgeable and thus productive members of the society. Right from our childhood, we are taught by our teachers in the school and elders at home, and we thus gain various new concepts and skills as we grow up. However, we do not cease to learn when we grow up as we continue to learn throughout our lives. In modern educational scenario, training of personnel is an ongoing process and communication plays an important role in orientation and training of teachers and learners. Socialization. For the well-being of the society, nation and culture, it is crucial that we have exposed to different viewpoints so that we understand and appreciate the need for plurality of ideas and diversity of views. Communication fosters the feeling of oneness in a society by exposing the various social groups to different views. Entertainment. To break the monotony of human life, We need to be exposed to art, literature, music, films, dance, drama, sports, and other modes of entertainment. Communication provides us with this necessary diversion. Thus, entertainment is an equally important function of communication. Motivation. A motivated individual plays a useful active role in society. Communication motivates and persuades individuals to meet the mutually agreed upon goals. Sharing success stories of those who have overcome the odds in life and have been able to achieve their goals can do this. This function of communication, although relevant in all works of life, is more pronounced in business and industry, where communication is being increasingly used as a tool of motivation. Persuasion. Yet another important function of communication is to persuade. This may be to influence us towards a new idea, technique, or a product, and also to persuade us to buy these products. Preservation of culture. Communication helps to preserve the culture and heritage of a nation and society. Through communication, stories from the epics are shared with the younger generation. The transmission of values from one generation to another has been taking place orally as well as through written texts over the ages. In the modern world, different mass communication media have taken up this function. Communication has been broadly categorized into following four types. Number one, intrapersonal communication. The word intra denotes within. When we communicate within ourselves, it is intrapersonal communication. This can take the form of thinking, analyzing, dreaming, or introspecting. Daydreaming, self-talk, or memories are all facets of interpersonal communication. Two, interpersonal communication. When two persons communicate with each other, the communication is interpersonal. Our everyday exchanges, formal or informal, which may take place anywhere, come under this type of communication. Number three, group communication. As the name suggests, when people communicate in group situations, this is known as group communication. This is an extension of interpersonal communication where more than two individuals are involved in the process of communication. The groups can be both formal as well as informal, depending on the type and objectives of communication, but generally they have common interests and goals. Finally, mass communication. This type of communication is different from all three types of discussed so far. In mass communication, communicator is separated from the audience in terms of time and place. Communication takes place simultaneously with the help of electronic device in which an institution is involved. These electronic devices are known as mass media such as print, radio, television, internet, etc. The audience is mass, that is, it has heterogeneous profile, are unknown to each other and located in widespread locations. Feedback in mass communication is considered to be weak and delayed as compared to group and interpersonal communication. Today, with developments in the field of information and communication technology, communication through electronic media may be interactive and feedback may not be delayed. Even now, print medium also, for instance, newspapers, journals, news broadcast, etc., engaged in mass communication do not generate as much feedback as other types of communication. Every day we communicate. Communication happens through conversations, posters, or glances across a room. In fact, most communication occurs without much effort on our parts or even opening our mouths. In Unit 1, we will take a look at the big picture of communication and examine its basic elements. Communication starts with an idea. To be able to communicate, we must have an idea, a notion, something we want to express, information to share, etc. Our past experiences, values, attitudes, knowledge, culture, and feelings all influence our ideas and the way that we interpret the ideas of others. These influences are our unique perceptions or the way we view things around us. Before idea can be transmitted to another person or group, we must encode these ideas. Think back to your history classes or football matches. What does a group at work or a team do when they don't want to other side or team to understand? They place that information or team play into code. In other words, they encode the ideas. Now the idea is encoded, is ready to be transmitted or sent to another person or group. The encoded idea is called the message. This message is sent to receiver. This is just like in a football game. The receiver is to catch the football. The telephone has a receiver in which you are able to hear the person on the other end of the line. The receiver must then interpret the message by filtering the new information through their past experiences, culture, attitudes, values, knowledge, and feelings. This interpretation is called decoding the message. The sender needs to make sure that the receiver understood the message. Therefore, it is the receiver's job to convey a message back. The receiver's reply to the sender is called feedback. The feedback allows the sender to ensure that the original message was interpreted correctly by the receiver. Once the cycle has gone full circle, it will repeat itself for as long as the conversation continues. We could even say that the sender and receiver change roles throughout the process depending on who is sending the message and who is responding to feedback. Now that we understand the general idea about how the cycle works, let's look at a few other pieces of communication process. The messages that are transmitted between senders and receivers are sent through channels. The channel essentially determines how the message will be sent. For example, if I wanted to tell someone hello, I could have wave, say hello, text hi to someone with my cell phone. The messages will be the same. However, the manner in which I choose to send it varies. Think about the decisions that you have to make if you want to give someone a present. Will you give it to them yourself, mail it through post office, or ask a friend to deliver for you? Messages can be sent through many channels like speaking face to face, writing letters, making facial expressions, or even watching television. Another important piece of communication process is the context in which the communication takes place. The context includes everything from the emotions of the communicators, the reason for the communication taking place, and where the actual communication takes place. So far, we have looked at the communication process and it works in ideal situations. However, sometimes the process is interrupted. Some things that interrupts, distorts, blocks, or interferes with the process is referred to as a communication barrier. Loud noises, bad phone connections, language, attitude about the topic and speaker, the temperature, the broken hearing aids are the examples of communication barrier. Barriers or noise is a term used to express any interference in communication between source and receiver. Some of these barriers could be physical, psychological, cultural, linguistic, technical, or due to information overload. If the source is not visible to the receiver and she or he is not comfortable in the environment, it may create barriers in communication. Geographical distance may also create barriers, as people may like to communicate with one another but due to physical distances may not be able to do so. Psychological barriers. Due to individual differences, attitudes, interest, and motivation levels, we perceive things and situations differently. Apart from this, the varied levels of anxiety, inherent prejudices, and previous experiences also create barriers in communication. Sociocultural barriers. In common process, sociocultural barriers also operate. in this communication process. To illustrate, in the Indian context, some women may not be like to discuss their health related problem with the male health worker. Technical barriers. While using technology, technical barriers also make the process of communication complex. When audio quality is poor or video signals are weak, the message may not clearly reach the target group. Erratic power supply also creates barrier in communication. Barriers due to information load. At times, too much information is imparted, which we may not be able to comprehend and assimilate, thus creating a barrier in communication. To illustrate, in a meeting, when a speaker provides information at a fast pace for considerable period of time, many of the issues and concepts may get lost at the end. We have discussed in detail the various types of barriers that affect the process of communication, and it may not be always be possible to completely remove all these barriers. However, with proper planning and special efforts, these can be minimized to a great extent. Some of the ways of facilitating effective communication could be clarity of message, reinforcement of ideas, selection of appropriate channel, motivation, proper environment, and feedback.